Welcome to Blair Tank. How come you don't cheer like that every time? Okay. We have a number of guests. Welcome. I mentioned in school meeting that each year we have one program lecture focused on entrepreneurship, and it's to honor Herman Hollerith. Hollerith was the great inventor of the punch card tabulator and the creator of tabulating machine corporation that morphed into IBM. His grandson Richard was a Blair parent, much like Blair parents here, and he urged us to focus on entrepreneurship at least once a year. We do it more than once a year usually, in any case. Tonight, of course, we have Blair Tank, and we're very fortunate to have three parents, all investors in their own right. Ron and Sana, a contributor to CNBC. We have Liz Siggety, a law partner in Philadelphia. We have John Moore of John.
Thank you for not booing.
John Moore is of Investor Circle in Philadelphia. And we also have the man making the pitch, Scott Shirley of Pledge It, a fundraising platform, a sport fundraising platform. You'll get a little overview from Liz Siggety. We'll hear the pitch from Scott Shirley, and then we'll talk turkey in this room. Thank you. Liz Siggety.
Welcome to Blair Tank. We're all very excited about you guys being here, and we are excited to hear a pitch from the company Pledge It. But first, I want to invite you all to become members of the Blair Academy Angel Network. And in order to do that, you do have to learn a little bit about what an angel investor actually is. So I'm going to be here for a moment of education, a crash course in angel investing. After this 15-minute crash course, something that should take a couple days, you will be the one to decide whether or not to invest in our presenting company. Of course, we have an expert panel of angels who will also be asking some questions and giving their opinions, but you will have an opportunity to ask questions. So please pay attention. I'm going to go very fast because we only have an hour, so stay with me. All right. Who has seen the show Shark Tank? Oh wow, almost everybody. And if you haven't seen it, you've probably heard about it, right? So here's the cast of Shark Tank. What happens in Shark Tank, because I watched it for the first time last week, is that the company comes in, 5 minutes of presentation, and then these guys decide if they're going to give them well into the 6 figures of money. So do you think that's the way it really happens?
Probably. Yes. I'd say so. Yes.
Not really.
Wow.
It takes a little longer than 10 minutes to get $500,000. So we are going to give you the reality of Shark Tank, or angel investing. So you see the little angels up there. What is an angel investor? I have a fun fact. Fun fact is, the term angel investing started on Broadway. And this is just the lore. This is what I've always understood. Angels would invest in Broadway shows which are highly risky ventures. They would often crash. And so they were called angels because they were supporters of the arts. That term has expanded to include people that invest in risky startup companies. And that's the term. So I'm going to enlist a help from one of my fellow angel investors from Band of Angels, which is a huge angel investment network. And you are going to get to hear from him his take on what is an angel investor.
is probably best thought of as a country club without a golf course, where the activity instead of golfing is investing in startup companies. You have groups of people get together, you have a nominal leadership that's often elected from the membership itself. There are bylaws and rules and customs that help organize the way the angel groups operate. The typical cycle of an angel group, though, is to meet at some regular interval. Often it's a month, sometimes it's every other month, occasionally even just once a quarter, and invite companies that are soliciting investment to come present to the group over a meeting, perhaps an afternoon meeting, often over a meal instead, say lunch, or in our case, over a dinner. The entrepreneur makes his or her presentation, and after that dinner, there is some follow-up. The Band of Angels gets its deals from two sources. One is referrals through our network, and the other is through our website. And that's typical of any angel group. We have a system for meeting periodically, once every month, to select 3 deals out of the constellation of deals that applied for an invitation to come to our monthly dinner. At that dinner, they have a few minutes to pitch and answer some questions. And it's really a sort of opportunity for them to broadcast what they do and who they are to a large group. We typically have 100 people at our dinners. After that, members of the Band of Angels vote with their feet by approaching the companies that pitch that they're interested in for further discussions. And sometimes, when they're very excited, they'll write a check right away, but more often they lay out a plan for further engagement with the entrepreneur. And the entrepreneur's job is to keep that engagement going. It's very typical that an angel will be very excited when they hear about an opportunity, but we live in a very fast-paced world where other opportunities come around the corner the next day and the next week. And so the entrepreneur's job is to treat this as any sales opportunity by engaging with their angel like they would a prospective customer, forming a relationship with them, answering questions, being responsive, and eventually closing the deal if it's appropriate to do so by acquiring an investment from them.
All right, so that is a summary of angel investment. My angel investment group is called Delaware Crossing Investor Group. I'm a managing director of that group, and as you can see, it explains exactly what he was talking about. We're executives and entrepreneurs, we invest in companies, and we support them with advice. Delaware Crossing meets once a month for dinner on Monday night, and we're a smaller group, 30 or 40 people. Okay, so who's heard of the term venture capitalist? Does anybody know what it is? Can you describe it? All right, so basically an angel is an early stage venture capitalist, but there's some differences. So venture capitalists are people who raise money from other people and it's their job to invest that money. Angels invest their own money straight from their own bank account. That's one difference. The next difference is the stage of the company. Usually angels invest in very early stage companies, sometimes companies that aren't even making money yet, or are in early stages of making money. VCs invest in later stage businesses. And the size of the business, VCs usually invest $2 million or more. It can be less, it can be a lot more. Angels typically around $500,000 to $1 million. That's for an angel group. So right now we're talking about groups of angels like was described. So, with that in mind, in the United States, how much money do you think all angel groups invest in companies during the year? I'd like to have some guesses here. Come on, guys. 5 billion? It's more.
10 billion.
More. No. My kids can't guess, they know. 24.1 billion in 2014. So this is a really important investment area. A lot of companies, whether it's StubHub or Snapchat, might not have made it to the venture capital stage if angel investors weren't there to get them to that stage. All right, so I'm mixing 2 movies, but they are both Tom Cruise movies. Risky Business. Now, Tom Cruise in Risky Business did start a company. His company was illegal. Angel investors invest in legal businesses. I would like to make that clear.
Thank you.
But why is it risky? What's risky about it? The companies often
Lose their money.
fail. They fail. So let's talk about why would an angel investor do this if the companies fail so much. So do you guys know what a portfolio is? It's when somebody invests in a lot of different things and they put it all together and they hope all the investments together will make money. So we're going to go through a quick example. So for angel investor, and this is pretty much what usually happens, portfolio of 10 investments, let's just say to keep it round numbers, $10,000 per company. So how many out of 10 investments, how many do you think completely fail, disappear? Actually, it's less than that, thank God. Half. Half of them fail, and usually they fail before the ones that succeed. So it's very unnerving. So immediately, not immediately, but half of your $100,000 disappears. So how many return all, or a bit more or less than all of the angel's money out of the remaining 5? Let's say another, right, 3. So then you're still down. We'll raise to, then another one usually will produce a good return, maybe 5 times. And then there's the investment angels dream about. Let's say they get 20 times their money. So overall, what ends up happening to your portfolio? In this example, you get 2.3 times return. You put in $100,000, you got $230,000 back. That's about what some studies have shown. Okay, so what do you think most angel groups invest in? Now, if you see Shark Tank, you'll see a lot of interesting products. But for angel groups, what do you think they mostly invest in? I heard technology. Software and hardware. What do you think another industry sector? Okay, George, go ahead. What? Medical, life science, healthcare-related companies, drugs and medical devices. That's over half of angel investing. So, what is an angel really buying? And this is going to become relevant in the presentation. What do they buy? They buy stock, ownership of the company, usually. So, in an example here, and this is something if you watch Shark Tank, the person will say, I'll give you $100,000 for 25% of your company. And every once in a while the entrepreneur will go, ugh. Why are they doing that? Because basically, a $100,000 investment in a company worth $400,000, they're saying that their company is worth $400,000. That's the valuation. So the angel gets 25% of the company. So how about this next one? If the company's worth $5 million and the angel invests $500,000, what percentage of the company does the angel get? Very good. You guys know math. Okay, so this is what I want you to really pay attention to. During the pitch, what do angels want to know? What is the first thing that an angel should want to know? Revenue. That is a very important thing. That's going to be on my list. But when an angel comes in and you don't know anything about the company, what should it be? Do you want to start out with that? Is that the first thing you want to know? What's the first thing you want to know? You know nothing about the company.
Valuation.
No. What does the company do? I know this is painfully obvious.
Wait, Sue,
Okay, you said product. You said product. It is shocking how often a company comes in and you're halfway through the presentation and you still don't know what to do. Next thing is the people. People are really important. You could have the best product in the world, and if you don't have the right person to take it to market, it'll fail. Next thing is the market. What is the addressable market? Could they sell $1 billion worth of this stuff, or 100,000 of this stuff? And what is out there already that they have to win over? What is the competition? And then how are they going to get there? How are they going to sell? If there's already established products out there, how are they going to break through and convince somebody to switch from what they're doing now to what they're doing in the future? And then, there you go. Financial information, projections, revenue. Is very different than selling something to a store. You really, an investor wants to know why are they going to make money. And without financial information, they can't figure that out. And then the exit strategy. So what is an exit strategy? What do you think? Like, how would a company exit and an angel get their money back? If they are sold. Does anybody know the second way, which is less often, but does anybody know what happened to Snapchat, a week or two ago? It went public. Exactly. A lot of happy angels probably in that transaction. So, if you're curious about more, the general industry group is the Angel Capital Association. This is a website you can go to learn everything you want to know about angel investing. And now, we are going to return to Blair Tang.
Hey, Billy. Just a little side note on Snapchat, for those of you who probably don't pay a lot of attention to the details of this. One of the original investors for Snapchat was on the board of a Catholic school in California, in Silicon Valley. And he convinced the Catholic school's board to put $15,000 into Snapchat. They made $25 million. That doesn't happen that often. But hopefully it's going to happen with Scott Shirley tonight, who is the CEO of Pledge It. He's got a new platform that involves sports and maximizing return on sports. I'm not going to give away too many details because that's going to be his job to convince you, the Blair Academy Barracudas, since we don't have any sharks here, to put your money in. Those of you who are getting D1 college scholarships to football or something like that, might have some spare change that you want to put into this process and see indeed whether or not you can turn your 15 grand into 25 million. So with that, Scott now will be approaching the Barracuda. Scott?
Yeah.
Hi, Sharks and Barracudas. Give it up for yourselves.
We're not called Barracudas.
I'm Scott Shirley. I'm the founder and CEO of Pledge It. I'm here today seeking a $1 million investment for a 10% equity stake in my company. I'm out. Let me see if I can change your mind. So, John, when I was growing up playing sports, every year, every season, I had to go door to door selling candy bars, cookie dough, popcorn, wrapping paper. I saw a mattress fundraiser the other day. It's ludicrous. People don't like selling it, people don't like buying it, and the margins are only about 30% for the team. So the people that are getting rich aren't the kids raising the money. I thought to myself, there has to be a better way. What if you could earn money by simply playing the game you love? So we created Pledge It to revolutionize sports fundraising. It's very simple in concept. A coach creates a campaign in 15 minutes or less. Fans pledge per touchdown from their mobile phone or their laptop computer. Teams score, and supporters are notified after the game, and their credit cards are automatically processed, and the funds are deposited into the team's account. So you can literally raise money by simply playing the game. But to show you our product in action, I'd like to share a video with you. guessed it, my first step was to assemble an all-star team of nerds and jocks, featuring former teammates of mine from Penn State, Dave Koslow, who worked at IBM, to Ryan Gimrick, who worked at McKinsey & Company in their sports and entertainment consulting practice, to Ryan Keener, our CTO, who came from Intel and Hewlett-Packard, and Todd Smith, who ran Derek Jeter's foundation for about a dozen years. The market opportunity that we realized was that high school sports represents a very large market. About 410,000 varsity sports teams across the country take the field every year. 96% of those schools are seeing increasing costs, while 84% of them are seeing decreased funding. About half of them already depend on fundraising as a major contributor to their budget, and about 69% engage in some form of fundraising today. Across the sports market, from youth to pro, including the charity run walk space, there's about 34 million athletes that represent $14 billion in fundraising needs. So our go-to-market strategy started with professional athletes and what's known as influencer marketing. With my background in sports, I first started a charity in college while playing football at Penn State that's had over a $400 million economic impact on the rare disease community. A lot of my teammates and their friends were among the first paying customers of Pledge It. We've had over 200 professional athletes and teams now, including Olympic teams, use our product to raise money for causes that they are passionate about. We leverage that into distribution deals or national partnerships to create programs with the American Cancer Society, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, and CBS Sports Interactive. Last fall was the pilot program for Touchdowns Against Cancer, where high school teams across the country raised money with every touchdown they scored in September for St. Jude. And this February was the inaugural three-point challenge with the American Cancer Society, where 165 college basketball teams raised money for ACS with every three-pointer they made in the month of February. With the amount of money that I'm going to raise, we're going to pursue 5 new initiatives. Direct sales to penetrate the market with a product that we've proven works. Digital marketing, because with the traffic we get from the affinity campaigns and from the national programs, that's the most expensive part of digital marketing, to fill the top of the funnel. So we have an opportunity to educate, engage, and activate those users. Charitable B2B, sales and marketing, which is really exciting for me because we actually just had a campaign launch the other day, and 91% of our campaigns come to us through indirect channels, so we're not spending marketing and sales dollars on them, and require little to no assistance. So it is a software as a service platform that is growing and gaining traction more and more every day. And the charitable B2B space is driving a lot of that because the charities that are benefiting from the funds raised, like the American Cancer Society, are going out and recruiting people to use our product to their benefit. With marketing automation, we can drive the value of the campaign up significantly. We're seeing about 270% increase applying marketing automation tools to the platform. And then national and local sponsorship deals. We have a long-term contract with CBS Sports Interactive to sell sponsorship on the campaigns at a very, very healthy margin for our company. So the company metrics, and I learned these from a friend who sourced the deal for GoFundMe to acquire CrowdRise, are essentially the number of campaigns you run, the average per campaign, and the total payments process. So last year, in what was our first full year of operation, we ran 456 campaigns at an average of $1,092 for total payments process of about $500,000. Our goal this year is to triple the number of campaigns, almost double the amount raised per campaign, and then process over $2.5 million. In the first quarter of this year, we've already run 393 campaigns. Our average is $1,414 with the introduction of the marketing automation that we feature set that we're implementing. And the total payments processed are already at $550,000 in the first 3 months of this year. Also on Pledge It, because your donations are earned, not given, pledgers are giving almost twice the national average for an online gift, which really makes our product positioned well to own the sports fundraising space. Our revenue and EBITDA curve. Last year we made $56,000 in fee income. This year our goal is $409,000 with a portion of that coming from the sponsorship deal. And that will increase to 1.2, 4.2, and then 14.7 with our EBITDA margin growing over time because it is software as a service. Of note, in 2020, for us to process $72 million, we only need about 37,000 campaigns. And if you remember the earlier slide, I showed you there's 410,000 high school sports teams, and that doesn't even account for 7th grade, 8th grade, JV, varsity, youth, travel, and so forth. So on the exit opportunity side, we're really uniquely positioned as a company because we have 3 channels that we could exit, and there's activity in all 3 of them. In the brand category, Under Armour bought MyFitnessPal for almost $500 million, and Dick's Sporting Goods just bought Game Changer in November, and they're interested in active users, which ours fit those brands' demographics. Media outlets desire our traffic. CBS Sports bought Max Preps at 40x revenue, and the deal that we have in place with CBS now is similar to the deal that they had with Max Preps when they started testing that relationship. And NBC Sports recently bought Sports Engine as a team management platform. And ultimately, the fundraising companies, a company like Blackbot, who spends hundreds of millions of dollars every year buying the competition, and GoFundMe, who received a $600 million buyout in 2015, they're now valued over $1 billion, and that is an acquisition engine, and they just acquired CrowdRise for $91 million. And our platform provides strategic value to all 3 categories. So with that, I'd like to leave you with the notion that as a company, we believe in the power of sport for social good. I thank you for giving me an opportunity to share my story, and hope that you guys are interested in using Pledge It to make the world a better place. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. That was a great presentation, and thank you for the opportunity to learn more about your business. I have a couple questions, and my first question is about the sales growth. And you show some pretty aggressive sales growth, growing at 300% year over year for the next, I think, 5 years. And so can you talk a little bit about how you think you're going to achieve that on such a consistent basis?
Yeah, so first of all, our customer retention is extremely high, because once a team starts raising money, they don't ever desire to raise less money, because school officials know how to spend the money that's raised. So it creates an ongoing demand, and it's a very sticky product. In addition to that, like I said, with 91% of our campaigns coming through indirect channels, and with the new marketing initiatives that we have, our steady state growth is about 250% if we just keep doing the same thing. And I'm really excited with some of the testing that we've done with some of these new initiatives of our potential to grow at a much more accelerated rate.
So that kind of leads into my other question about the valuation. So if I heard you right, you said 10% of the company for $1 million for 10% of the company, which is a value of $10 million.
Yep.
So given that your sales revenue was how much? 56,000
last year? Yeah, 409 projected for this year.
How can you have a $10 million valuation for a company with 56,000 revenue?
Yeah, so about a year ago, we did a price round of pre-money of $5 million. We raised about 1.5 on that, and we've shown significant growth, and traction from that point until now. And when you look at similarly situated companies, and you look at the deals like GoFundMe buying CrowdRise, we actually matched the trajectory of all of those companies historically from day one. So software as a service companies are typically valued at a higher multiple, and what I've learned in the space is that while your revenue is still below $1 million, they pretty much consider you a pre-revenue company, and it's really based on the strategic value and the market opportunity and your position to capitalize on that.
And will you have to raise more money after this $1 million? And how much do you think you'll need to grow?
Yeah, so with our projections, we need about $2.25 million to get to break-even cash flow.
Scott, before I have questions for me, you were mentioning during your presentation EBITDA growth.
Yeah.
I suspect some of the barracudas and sharks in the room have yet to hear that acronym that we use so frequently on Wall Street. Can you explain what EBITDA is to them?
Yeah, it creates essentially an apples-to-apples comparison. So it's your earnings before any type of adjustments or calculations are made. So for things like interest, taxes, amortization, there's a number of factors, depreciation, that in pure accounting terms get applied to your revenue. But when you want to just compare kind of bare bones company to company, you look at the EBITDA, and it's just kind of a true north metric.
All right, so from my perspective, the fees that you're taking, are those fee splits with those entities that are taking in the capital on behalf, or it's not unheard of in philanthropic circles to take a percentage of money raised.
Yeah.
That can vary from 5 to 10 to 20%, depending on how aggressive the intermediary wants to be. Where's your revenue stream derived?
Yeah, so our processing fee is 7% if it's for a 501c3 charity and 12% if it's for a self-serving campaign. And then I had mentioned sponsorship there, and we have a real opportunity because our platform has so many engagement points. A typical pledger could have up to 18 points of engagement with the platform, and our email open rate's over 80%. So, if there's any email marketers in the room, that's a number that is really unheard of. But because the emails tend to be transactional and emotional in nature, you want to see if you pledge for every home run that the Blair baseball team hits this season, you're not at the game. When you get that email, you're going to open it up to see, first, how they do. Second, how much do I owe? And one of the really cool things is...
I don't worry because he's mostly a singles and doubles.
Oh, that's not okay, but kind of funny. Look at it. Obliterated.
All right, calm down, calm down. I'm sorry, so because of the transparency and the interaction, we have less than 0.5% of people that actually cancel their pledge. So we have a 99.5% conversion rate on all pledges.
And with respect to your earnings growth going forward, what compounding, we talked about revenue compounding, what's your earnings compounding growth over the next 5 years?
Yeah, so, I mean, the great thing about software as a service is we don't have to scale a sales team. Most of the investment in people is going to be on the customer success side to manage the inbound traffic and to make sure that the campaigns perform. And we've seen significant improvements in that over the last 18 months too. And all of the different metrics I track are really encouraging. Somebody had asked about GoFundMe earlier, and in terms of competition, obviously we're taking on the candy bar and the cookie dough head on. But the crowdfunding space as an industry is about $35 billion, and it's grown 12x over the last 40 years.
But your earnings growth would be what?
Our earnings growth?
Compounded, yes.
So in 2020, we're looking at an EBITDA of 5 to 6 million.
I have a question.
Yeah.
When I played baseball, which was not in high school but in middle school,
But you excel.
right? We actually never won a game, so we didn't score any runs. So how do you make money? How do you make money if you're not any good and don't score?
So that's a great question, and the devil on my shoulder says our product's not for you. It's performance-based fundraising. But the reality is, what we've seen is it's great for developmental stats. So youth soccer will do pass strings. So you watch a youth soccer game, you see everybody run to the ball. Well, now you're able to recognize and motivate people to perform the action that you want, because that's what the fundraising is based on. In Little League, Game Changer, the one company I had up there that was just acquired by Dick's Sporting Goods, they track a stat in their scorebook. It's a digital scorebook called Equality at Bat. So you can go up and strike out. But did you take a couple pitches? Did you make contact with the ball? Did you, so you can incentivize.
So I could have even made some money. That's good to hear.
Yeah. Sure.
Barracudas, questions?
All right. First question over here.
Who would be entering like the either the scores and countries into this software? Like, what if the person who pledges is not necessarily active and how they know it would be active?
Yeah, so all of the pledges are to the campaign, so the campaign manager is the one that enters the stats. And with our partnership with CBS Sports Interactive, the company that they own, Max Preps, when the coach enters the stats in Max Preps, the data is sent to us through the API, so that happens automatically. If you do a bird watching campaign as a nature conservancy, and you're raising money based on how many unique species you photograph, which happened, somebody went to our site and created that campaign the other day. And that's a great thing about sports, and sports are really a universal language. So our product and this concept of performance-based fundraising really translates well, and people are able to see sports, understand it, and apply it to what they know. But in that instance, it would be the person who created the campaign, and they're using Facebook to create their accountability, so they're posting a photo of every bird that they take. We have community policing, so somebody can report fraud through the site, somebody can contact the campaign manager through the site, and with the communication, the credit cards aren't charged until 30 days after the first game is played. So there's a lot of time to correct it before anybody's credit cards are charged. Yeah, in the back?
So you're doing more of like a charity walk-based type thing, right? Like
Yep.
people get So where's the incentive for it? Because this is just going to high school teams. Yeah, of course, grandparents and parents will want to do it, but what about people in the community who don't care about sports? It's not like you're getting something in return, like cookie dough or...
Right.
Amen. Of course, the one thing.
Yeah, so the charity already used the product. In fact, we just had a woman who ran 7 marathons in 7 days on 7 continents, and collected a pledge for every mile that she completed in her challenge. But in that instance, the funds go directly to the charity, and as I said earlier, this idea of a charity reseller is working really well for us, where once we get the charity set up on the platform, they go out and do the campaign acquisition to find people to use the product to raise money to their benefit. So it's really defined by the beneficiary, and that's all right there on the campaign page. Yep.
What prevents someone from doing this as a nonprofit? Is there technically
Yeah, there's nothing that prevents them from doing it as a nonprofit. You mean creating the platform themselves? Yeah, I mean the largest cancer charity and the second largest cancer charity are using the platform rather than creating it themselves, because we're the experts in the space rather than them. You know, their job is to find a cure for cancer. So rather than trying to build and manage a technology team to keep up with the product, and one of the misconceptions I had about technology, as I alluded to, this is my second startup, the first was actually a nonprofit, is A, how collaborative the technology space is, and B, how ongoing development is. So you don't just build a technology product and then use it for the next 10 years. As the platforms and the frameworks and all of those things update, you have to constantly stay current. You know, so if Facebook releases an update to their API, the Facebook plugin that we have breaks on the site. So we have to employ developers full-time around the clock and manage the product well to the needs of the market.
Can I follow up on that?
Yeah.
Are you contemplating selling software and services in addition to deriving revenue from the fundraising process?
We are. So one of the things that we're starting to test is a subscription service to the charities that would lower the fee pretty significantly and give us very steady recurring revenue in a repeatable fashion. One of the things that we're being tempted to do, and we're trying to evaluate the strategic merit of it, is almost more consultative in nature. So because we've created these national programs with these 2 large charities, the other charities are calling and asking us to help them figure out what their sports fundraising program is. And we're trying to understand how do we price that and monetize that, and not steer the company in a direction that investors might see as a less valuable direction in favor of immediate revenue. Yes, sir.
Is the goal of the company to provide a service for people trying to raise money for charity, or to make a profit for people donating to charity?
So as a for-profit company, our goal is to make money and to create a return for our investors. But the mission of the company is to amplify the ability of charities to raise money and find new revenue sources. So you can do both good and do well, and that's something that, as a company, has helped us recruit that all-star team of nerds and jocks I showed you earlier. I mean, they're people with a purpose, and they're the best at their craft, and it makes coming to work a lot of fun every day. I mean, we use Slack. I don't know if you guys use Slack for internal communications. Got one guy over here. And we have books on the platform that it integrates with, so I'm able to monitor activity. And when I wake up every morning, the first thing I do is I check our campaign channel and see what did somebody in the world do last night with the product that we put out there. And you know, I say all the time that I was fortunate enough when I started the charity in college to rally people around my passion. I totally underestimated how fulfilling it would be to give people a tool to use to pursue theirs. And I woke up one morning and Bismack Bionville, a 6th man for the Toronto Raptors, the guy, honestly, I didn't know his name at the time. I looked at my phone, he had created a campaign right around the time of the All-Star break last year for the NBA. He'd gone home to the Eastern Congo and visited his school, and it had been devastated. So when he came back, he wanted to use his rebounds, or in basketball terms, his boards, to rebuild his school. So he launched a campaign completely on his own from his mobile phone. And in 48 hours, he raised $42,000 on 6 rebounds 2 days later. And he was able to use the power of sport for social good, and we were able to really streamline the opportunity for him to do so. Yes, sir?
So you said you need about $2.5 million of investment in order to start breaking even. So what are your major costs? What is the largest chunk of that going into?
It's almost all people. So I said we employ 3 full-time developers. We have to hire a full-time user experience designer, and eventually a full-time product manager. Because right now my product manager is also my VP of marketing and my COO. We need to hire some customer success, and we need to hire some field reps. But the majority of our costs are soft costs in terms of people. And the great thing about the field reps is other software as a service companies in the sports space, Huddle, MaxPreps. Huddle is valued almost $1 billion right now. They're able to retire a field rep model in 3 to 4 years. So it's really just a tactic to get that market penetration. And selling into a school, it's an opportunity to sell one to many.
And if I understand you right, what you're saying is that they can have salespeople that go out and sell their product for a couple of years, and then once they get big enough and their name is known, throughout the country, those sales, they don't need the sales reps anymore because people just know if they want that product, they can go to that business.
And in that example, the MaxPreps sales reps, after 4 years, Huddle hired all of them. And they went back into the same schools and sold Huddle's product. And then Huddle retired them and went with an inside sales model and success model once they reached 96% market penetration of high school football. And they're thriving. So, I've been very fortunate to establish network relationships of people who have kind of gone down these roads before and have an idea of what the future might hold. 2 more questions? Paper, rock, scissors?
I have a question for the investors. So, could you talk about the importance of having an appropriate valuation? Because you'll watch these shows like Shark Tank, for example, and people come on and they say, I value my business at $20 million. And a lot of times they don't know that to sustain that growth, to grow your business to $20 million is going to be very hard. So could you talk about valuations?
Sure, yeah. So I would just say, using Liz's example and use this as an example, if it's $1 million to get 10% of the company, it's a $10 million valuation now. And then Liz talked about the need to get a return on your companies. You don't know which company it is that is actually going to make it and give you the big return. So you need to make sure that every company that you invest in has the ability to get to that 10x return. And so in this case, 10x on $10 million that would be $100 million valuation when they sold the company. But you also mentioned that you need to raise another $2.5 billion. So at some point, maybe a year or 2 years from now, they're going to have to raise additional money, $2.5 billion on, let's call it $25 million valuation because you're hitting your numbers and things are going really well. So then you also have to factor that into the calculation. And if they only raise $2.5 million, first of all, I'd be shocked because a lot of companies they actually end up needing a lot more money than they think. And then every time that company raises money as an investor, I get diluted, which means if I own 10% of the company now by putting in $1 million, and he raises another $2.5 billion, I will get diluted. Using our example by 10%. So instead of 10%, I would have none.
Unless you have the rights.
Yeah, now I could put more money in and I could buy money to try to maintain my, but you'll see with a lot of these companies, especially as they try to scale and they try to get bigger and bigger, they raise $40 million or $50 million to try to grow the company. And as an early investor, that just means that the company has to, instead of being sold for $100 million to get 10x, it might have to be sold for $500 million or $1 billion to get 10x. And that's very hard to do. I mean, it happens. It does happen that companies get sold for over $1 billion, but in the venture capital world, they call them unicorns because they're very few and far between. It's the one thing that all the venture capitalists want to find. They want to invest in the Snapchats and the Ubers of the world, but given the, what did you say, it was $27 billion of $24 billion of angel money that goes into all these companies. Most of them do not find unicorns. So.
But the other thing also that from an investment perspective, you don't always just talk about absolute valuations. You look at relative valuations within the industry group itself, and then you're also making choices among other investment opportunities. So, we may find that taking 10% for $1 million is interesting, but we might have a more advantageous investment in another group entirely, another industry, another space, where the valuation favors us more. So we're always weighing absolute relative valuations against each other to determine how we're going to allocate funds. So if you look at the peer group to see how they're valued, so somebody has been taken out at 40x, which is a big number, right? Or if you're going to sell 40 times 14 million, that's a big number, that $1 billion number, and that would probably be satisfied even if we got diluted down. But by the same token, there might be a sleeper business out there that no one's really heard of that we get in as angels really early, and it's Amazon or it's some other rocket ship that's going to deliver 600,000% over a period of time, which is what it did since inception. So,
and how long until they were break-even cash flow?
Never.
Right.
But Amazon is the only company in the history of my experience, in fact, probably in the history of the investing world, the only company that's been allowed not to be profitable, not to be break-even, and have the stock go straight up for almost its entire existence.
And I wasn't using that. I wasn't using that as a peer group.
No.
Yeah. The other factor is rate of return too, right?
Yeah,
if you can get a 3x in 12 months,
sure,
that's a great deal.
Yeah.
And if we're holding on to this company and getting 10x over 10 years, you might as well do mutual funds.
Yeah.
Yeah. Last question.
What actions are Pledget taking to kind of get taken out there in schools and places that you can advertising or word out?
Yeah, so we're doing some digital advertising on social media, but really it's been the affinity marketing. So guys like Kevin Durant, Mike Trout, the biggest names in sports are actually paying customers on our platform. And if you valued the marketing spend for that exposure, we had somebody do an analysis and it came up about $1.5 million worth of marketing spend was the value of having them as users on our platform over the last 18 months. So that's been our primary driver. Second to that is these national charity deals. So with the American Cancer Society program in February, CBS actually did some broadcast advertising for the program, of which we benefited from kind of the halo effect of that. On the final evaluation from the entrepreneur side, I think the most ideal outcome is an honest valuation. To your point, if I can convince somebody to give me a valuation that's not realistic, that really limits my ability to raise money in the future. And understanding the need to have some equity in the future that I can leverage to grow the company. Because you said at dinner, it's easiest to get money from a bank when you don't need it. It's really the same thing in the investment community too. It's a much safer bet when we're de-risked, but I can be approaching break even, but want to pour some gasoline on it. To be able to go out and get money by not having an absurd valuation out of the gate is very helpful to me. So.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks.
Scott is going to leave while we consider this opportunity.
Thanks, Scott.
Do you guys want to give any brief comments?
So typically, we'll have the entrepreneur give their pitch and we have Q&A, just like we did. And then in our English groups, we'll ask the entrepreneur to step out, and then all the members of our group, we'll discuss what we think about the opportunity, what we think about this investment. And we generally like to start with what you like about the opportunity, what you think is positive about the opportunity, because especially in early stage investing, you can always find something wrong with these companies because there's so much risk and so many things unknown. So does anybody have any thoughts about what they like about it?
It's much more efficient than like going door to door selling like fundraising out.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. That's really something that I like, is that you're displacing a really antiquated process, right?
Now, there's something when we invest that we call due diligence, which means actually showing up at the company and finding out whether Scott works there.
No, but this is true.
It's not as funny as it sounds. Theranos, if any of you guys have heard of this blood testing company, in which the young female CEO had a net worth at one juncture of $5 billion, youngest female billionaire in the history of the United States, now owes Theranos $25 million because almost the entire company was based on fraudulent practices. So if you do not go out and kick the tires on the company, if you don't go out and make sure that Scott's in the office, and that these people that he put up on the board are actually affiliated with the firm, and their names are being allowed to be used for marketing and advertising purposes. If you just take a presentation and you say, I love this idea, I'm going to throw $500,000 at it, without ever going to visit him, without going to his board meetings, without talking to other investors, without talking to customers, you failed in your job as an investor. So a lot of great ideas sound great. Bernie Madoff delivered 12% returns for over 30 years, and it was all phony, and he actually lost $60 billion during that period. Due diligence for what we do is a critical part of the investing process. You have to go kick the tires before you make a decision.
So, yeah, that's a great point. I'll throw out something that I like about the opportunity, and one of it is one of the things that I like is that the market is really big. I mean, there's a lot of, even if it's just sports, it sounds like there's other things that they can get into. We mentioned the Nature Conservancy, so there's other opportunities that we could do. And the other thing is that because it's mostly technology that's driving this, he'll have to hire people to make sure everything's working right. But once he gets up above a certain point, the profits that he should make on this should be really significant, which is always a good thing too.
It's a good thing.
Anybody else have anything that
Any other comments? And we're going to do a vote. We're going to do a vote here. Oh, where?
I was just going to ask.
Ah, there you go. I didn't see.
Sorry. One observation I made was that he only had one woman on his management team, and I just wondered if that is something that that you look at, consider when looking at companies. There was an article in last Sunday's New York Times about the bro CEO, too many companies run by just guys hiring their friends. And if that's something that you look at and consider.
I would flip that into an opportunity set for Scott.
Right.
Which is, there are also female-oriented sports that are going through the very same process. The fact that there's no representation among professional female athletes or those who have been in the system and graduated through it, that opens up an entirely different category of work that, absent having someone like that or more than one person like that on the board, they might be missing an opportunity to expand their business. From a pure diversity perspective, I understand the tilt, given the direction the business has currently gone in, but I think it's for future reference, it's a point we'll take.
I mean, for me, it is a red flag. If you have no diversity within your company, it's a concern. And we invest in companies a lot of times when there's only 2 or 3 people, and I think in that situation, especially in the early stage venture world, sometimes you will end up with just 2 guys. But it is something, in my opinion, that's really important because that's a question about the CEO. Is he able to communicate with everybody? Is he able to rally all different types of people into his business or not?
Right. But it has to be understood as an evolving process given the size of the business.
And there's also some evidence out there, some early evidence that say women do better.
Yeah, that's right.
Both on the investing and on the operations side.
Okay, so we are okay.
Do you think Scott would ever have to change his intended market because after a certain period of time, it's because I assume this is kind of like a logistic growth type of thing, but the more and more people that find out, eventually once it reaches the maximum, fewer and fewer people will be starting to spread the word of this company, and this is I think targeted toward donors who support each high school team. So do you think he's ever gonna have to expand his market to eventually surpass that kind of bounty that a lot?
I think he said his addressable market was $37 billion. And if that's the case, and he's got a relatively small, almost 0 penetration right now, if he can get to $2 billion or $1 billion in revenue, I really don't care.
He could probably build a big enough business that he could sell it. Before that. But the point about competition, I mean, we didn't really get into the things that were concerns. But for me, competition is a big concern because I don't think there's really any barrier to entry in this company. I mean, anybody could, pull together $3 million and some sports superstars and you know, have a go at this. So it's a question of whether he can stay in front of that now.
Again, competition, like you just said, there's really no barriers to entry. They're taking 12% of people's donation dollars.
7 and 12.
7 to 12. That's so people donating money to their local team. Isn't there going to be some tech whiz out there who says, I'm going to do this for 0%?
Well, in a purely philanthropic sense, yeah.
And that would undercut the entire business because people would rather be at 12%.
It's true, but if you look at philanthropic models that are older that this is replacing, there are some fundraising agents who take up to 20% of donations before they pass it along. So as a disruptive vehicle, this is, you know, anywhere from, you know, 3/4 to half of what's currently, or less of what's currently being charged. So, and it's also highly efficient. So somebody coming in and doing it for zero is unsustainable unless they have a service model or an ad model that goes with it. They'll provide revenues and profits to keep them alive for a period of time after they do the ultimate disruptive, you know, thing, which is to take the price down to zero. You can't sustain a model unless it's purely philanthropic.
Yeah, and this, I mean, the technology is probably relatively simple and somebody could recreate that, but really this is a marketing play. This is about being, you know, attracting the right people and getting out there in the market and you know, getting market share.
Okay, so we're starting to get a little short on time. So Blair, Academy, Angel Network, I'm going to say no, and you can raise your hand. And I'm going to say yes, and you can raise your hand. And then our panel will make some short comments. And then I'll have a surprise for you after that as well. Okay, so Angels, Barracudas, who is a no? All right, who is a yes?
Okay, we need $1 million from you, so.
Yeah, so how much?
50,000.
Okay, I think the yeses won the day on that one. Investors, what is your follow-up?
Well, first of all, I like the opportunity. I think it's a big market, and I have a little bit of concern about the valuation, and the competition is another thing that I would want to educate myself on in the due diligence process. But the other thing I would say is that Scott is a seasoned entrepreneur. He's already started a business, although it was a nonprofit, it was still a business that he started. And then also, some of his answers to the questions about valuation and raising follow-on capital, because we're fairly sophisticated for an entrepreneur. So that also gives me comfort that he knows what he's doing. He's been able to do this before, and that he'll be successful doing it again. So I personally like to go into due diligence and consider an investment.
As would I, although I think from my perspective, I like broader categories that have greater growth potential, larger potential market size. So, you know, for me to commit money to something that does at the moment have a revenue limit, or limiter, if you will, at least at this stage, I'd be a little more wary, but I'd be happy to go into due diligence and you know, look at the numbers more closely.
Excellent. Shall we bring Scott in or down? Run, Scott.
It's coming down. We're already late.
All right, so.
We're already late.
So we'll be collecting checks.
We're going to send around a basket.
Wait, everybody has a school account, right?
Okay, so I'm going to tell you what really happened. Scott presented to my angel group last year. The valuation was a lot lower at that point, and my group invested $150,000 into his company. Scott, again, presented, and it's right at the start of a fundraise, so there could be more to come after this. Last night, to my angel group, and we committed almost $100,000 as a follow-on, so that's $250,000 from Delaware Crossing Investor Group. His valuation is actually a little lower than 10. We were just using even numbers, so just so you all know, it's actually a little less than 10. So.
because like
Professor Mark, whether you stay for other questions or not?
If you have time, the United States will say